You've already proven you can manually generate leads during market validation, and you've been able to hand off this effort to an intern costing you only $150 a day. But here's the thing, you're only able to generate 1 or 2 leads per day, and at other times it may take up to a couple days or up to a week to generate a lead as your manual process is too slow and it needs automation, as your lead engine just isn't repeatable or scalable. But here's the thing, you've never built a self-serve lead engine that can provide the predictability that you need. So what do you do now? Well, in this episode, we're going to discuss the steps that you will take to build your automated lead engine that will deliver the number of qualified leads you need to ramp up sales while staying within your marketing budget. And we'll cover a whole lot more. I'm Stephen White, and this is Building Lean. Hey there, awesome founders. Welcome back once again to Building Lean, our series of workshops that cover the steps and activities your startup must take to build key business functions to sustainably generate revenues. Not only are our workshops inspired by thought leaders on startup and scale methodologies, but we also share our experience as founders, as well as working with hundreds of startups in our research, distilling the reasons why over 160 funded startups failed. And that's not all. We have Shafique patiently waiting to join us immediately after this workshop to answer your burning startup questions related to how you can build your startup lean. If you're interested in growing your startup by building lean, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that notification bell nearby so you can receive the latest insights that will help you avoid mistakes that cost you time and money. Remember, building lean is for you, the founder, the innovator, who just needs a bit of help and direction to achieve your dream. We do this because we believe in you, because we also know what it's like to search for help or guidance in how to start a startup. So don't hesitate to ask us a question or seek some feedback from us. We'll do whatever we can for you as quickly as possible. And if you need a bit more dedicated one-on-one coaching, we'll figure out a way to get you into our incubator program. Okay, so now let's get to why you're here. In this episode takes us into the activities and milestones you need to complete in order to successfully achieve the second startup phase of repeatable sales and delivery. As a quick refresher, repeatable sales and delivery means the ability to repeatedly sell, produce, and deliver your product. Of course, to sell, you must generate qualified leads, and after you deliver your product, you must ensure high product adoption rates. Product adoption occurs when your customers use your product to solve their problem on a regular basis, which is the last activity and part of the repeatable sales and delivery phase. In other words, you'll know that you've completed this startup development phase when you've achieved the following 4 milestones. Number 1, you build a lead engine that can repeatedly generate qualified leads for you. Number 2, you build a sales engine that can repeatedly take a defined percentage of your qualified leads and convert them into paying customers in a defined time frame. Number 3, you build a solution engine that can repeatedly produce and deliver your product or service to your customer and get your customer to adopt and regularly use your product or service. And number 4, you have validated your scale hypothesis regarding how you'll stay ahead of the competition. During this episode, we're focused on the process of building a lead engine that can regularly generate qualified leads with a predictable cost per lead. This will enable you to develop your marketing budget and know the amount of time you'll need to generate qualified leads when working through your sales engine. Remember, you won't be able to build a validated sales engine without being able to pour enough qualified leads in that convert into paying customers. You gotta be able to do that first. So, returning to this episode's focus, what do we mean when we say a lead engine? Well, when we think of engines, the picture that comes to mind is a device that converts fuel into mechanical energy. In this case of your startup, we're using the term lead engine to mean a business function that converts resources into qualified leads. Specifically for us, an engine consists of some automated process, an instrumentation panel that helps you monitor the performance of that process, and the controls that help you manage the operations of an engine. For your first milestone, you're going to build your lead engine. So let's look at the components of your lead engine. The lead engine consists of 3 components. Number 1, your lead generation process. Number 2, the KPIs that help you measure your cost per qualified lead and the time it takes to generate a qualified lead. And number 3, your controls, which will be your budget. By controlling the amount of money you spend, you can control the quantity of leads you can generate for a given time frame. Now let's look at each component in detail, starting with the lead generation process. Before we jump into defining the process, I do want to acknowledge a few items up front. What we have found is that often founders associate the word process with a bureaucracy. Likewise, many founders believe a process is something that actually slows a startup down. And even further, many founders believe that defining a process up front is really pretty difficult. Look, fair observations all the way around, which is why I want to take this moment to clarify that in Lean, we actually believe a process is your friend. So let me explain why that is and look through the reasoning for this. The benefits of using a defined process are pretty straightforward. As a founder, a process enables you to, number one, onboard new staff easily and fast. Number two, create a common understanding among team members that results in better coordination of work between team resources. And number three, a process helps you find and fix issues at critical points in the process more quickly. So in a few moments, I'm going to cover the tools that can help you build an optimal process that is easy for you and your team to understand and implement within your startup. So relative to building a lead engine, you should understand that a defined lead generation process helps you convert your prospects into qualified leads efficiently. Without qualified leads, your sales effort and product improvement efforts will absolutely stall out, which means that you'll actually run out of funds before determining whether you can scale your business. The second component of your lead engine is your instrumentation panel, consisting of your lead KPIs. Specifically, you should be interested in two key performance indicators. Number one, cost per qualified lead over time. Number two, cost per leads per day, the number of qualified leads per day. So for the purpose of building your lead engine, we define the capability of a lead engine as the ability to repeatedly generate leads for you for a defined price. The capacity of a lead engine is defined as the number of leads it can generate for a given amount over a given time frame, which means that the activities for building your lead engine will include calculating the cost of generating leads and then discovering how you will drive down the cost of each qualified lead through the optimization steps. And finally, the third and last component of your lead engine is the control available to you for increasing the capacity of your lead engine. When building your lead engine, there is only one control that will affect your capacity, and it's your advertising budget. Now, keep in mind, you will only want to use this control once you have optimized your lead engine. See, without optimization, you will waste significant resources to generate qualified leads. Now, one other thing, increasing your advertising budget will only help so far. Take this as an example. You eventually will run to a point where you saturate a market with your advertising, which means that you'll need to expand your geography to reach more of your target market. Now, I'll cover more on what this means a little bit later. But at this point, you have a high-level understanding of the three components that comprise a lead engine. But before looking at the activities and tools that will help you build your lead engine, I want to first explore an alternative approach entrepreneurs often take when building their lead engine. This comes straight from them. So the most common alternative approach that we encounter comes from entrepreneurs who often tell us the following. Hey, Steve and Shafique, I've already proven out the message and channel to reach my customers during the market validation process. So at this point, I think I'm ready to hire a firm to, take it from here, which will also free me up to work on the product itself, which is what I'm really good at and what I'm excited about. Okay. That seems to make sense, right? Divide and conquer. A founder or founding team can't be expected to master everything, right? Well, for every startup, there is a tension between time and money. So it's only natural for founders to believe that by spending a bit of money, they'll complete a critical task faster or free them up to work on something else more timely. Here's the reason why this doesn't work when building your lead engine. Hiring a quality marketing firm is quite costly. For that matter, hiring an experienced marketer to join your team is costly too, even if you're compensating that person with equity instead of cash. And just because you hire that firm or person doesn't mean that you're out of the picture at all. Matter of fact, they need your existing insights from market validation and your understanding of your solution's fit to successfully build your lead engine. Plus, if they're not successful in generating you qualified leads within the given time frame, look, you've just burned up a chunk of your marketing budget and still have to spend the time to overcoming this obstacle. What you're really trying to do is to save yourself time from having to learn the process of building your lead engine, which is why we're covering that here for you. We're making it simple. So let's look at an example of a well-funded educational technology startup that skipped the process of validating that they've built an efficient lead engine. Coming out of Y Combinator's winter 2011 cohort, TutorSpree appeared to be well on its way to becoming the Airbnb of tutoring, as it solved the problem of parents taking a lot of time to find high-quality tutors for their children. By developing a highly effective channel strategy using search engine optimization, or SEO, within 12 months, TutorSpree was able to rack up 7,000 professional tutors across the country, covering a variety of sought-after subjects. So with a profitable business model and a $1.8 million investment from top VCs, including Sequoia Capital, the future seemed absolutely bright for TutorSpree with plenty of runway ahead. And that was true, except for 3 challenges that the TutorSpree team was struggling with. Number 1, while its SEO strategy was working really great, TutorSpree was attracting tutors that were not geographically or topically concentrated. In other words, in some regions, parents had a number of tutors to choose from across a variety of subjects, but in other regions, it was pretty sparse. And number 2, TutorSpree was unable to develop a cost-effective marketing channel beyond SEO. So this last challenge may seem kind of trivial should you take the if it ain't broke, don't fix it point of view, as its search engine optimization was working pretty darn well. However, the risk for TutorSpree was in fact pretty enormous, as it placed all of its marketing eggs into one basket. And that risk turned to reality in March 2013 when Google published an update to its search engine algorithm, resulting in an 80% reduction in traffic for TutorSpree and effectively evaporating its entire channel strategy, which put the startup completely at the precipice of a do or die moment. When this occurred, TutorSpree had not been able to prove out its alternative channel, as it struggled to generate consistent qualified leads using pay-per-click or PPC advertising, or direct mailings, or partnerships. Now, both of those first 2 challenges directly fed into TutorSpree's third and most pressing challenge, which is by overly focusing on its channel success and attracting tutors via SEO, TutorSpree neglected flaws with its product design, which resulted in premature scaling. Now, this last challenge may seem to be a peculiar one to bring up, given the focus of this episode's topic. However, the reason why I bring it up is that TutorSpree's solution was a 2-sided marketplace, matching tutors to parents. It lacked solid product fundamentals that mattered to parents, such as moderation of tutor-student communications, profile verification, and background checking. See, in modeling itself after Airbnb, the TutorSpree team should have recognized the importance of creating trust between marketplace participants. Without those key features in place, TutorSpree was not able to achieve the viral growth it had expected to easily generate leads at scale, and in fact risk ruining its reputation, which inhibited future customer acquisition. So when it comes to building a lead engine for your product or service, you need to have a plan in place to measure whether you're on track with hitting your goals. To measure your progress, we use a technique called OKR, which stands for Objective and Key Results. It's a framework for setting and measuring goals, as well as the results of the activities to achieve them. For this first milestone of Lead Engine Built, we've designed a 30-day OKR that keeps you focused on completing the activities necessary to finish this milestone within 1 month. The key results correspond directly with your progress on the underlying work plan. So let's review what your execution cycle should be. Since we've already done all the hard work by building a project guide and pulling all the tools and milestones and data-driven approach together, I'm going to use all of this as a reference point for this episode. Now, the key aspect is, as you begin each activity, you need to plan your work so it can be completed in manageable, bite-sized chunks. This prevents the feeling of being overwhelmed in the work ahead or discouraged when you encounter a small setback. Now, once you've made your activity plan, then using the framework, tools, and process guides that I'm about to cover, You'll work on each activity in an orderly manner, which will keep you focused and on target. After completing all the activities for a given milestone, you need to schedule time to review your results with an advisor. Your advisor can help you with a fresh pair of eyes to quickly analyze whether you have correctly built your lead engine or not. In this last step of your execution cycle, you need to evaluate whether your idea suffers from a fatal flaw related to your channel assumption. Now, if you have advisors who are well versed in lean methodologies, then they should be able to help you perform this analysis. And if not, you can always contact a member of our team, such as myself or Shafique, for help with this. By the way, it may seem redundant to perform a fatal flaw analysis during the second startup phase related to your channel assumption when you already performed this during market validation. Well, in fact, this fatal flaw analysis is focused on the automation aspect of your channel assumption, which is something you were not concerned at all about with before, as your activities then were manual in nature. Okay, now that you understand how to proceed using a project guide, let's quickly look at the detailed activities for repeatable sales and deliveries. First milestone, lead engine built. To successfully achieve the lead engine built milestone, you'll complete the following 5 activities comprising the work plan. So let's look at each activity in detail. The first activity is when you define your lead generation process, as this helps you set up a consistent method for generating prospects. And there are 3 steps you need to accomplish within this activity. Step number 1, you must define your target market. Step number 2, you must find an effective placement channel to advertise your tested message. By the way, during this step, you'll utilize the working ads that you tested and refined during the market validation phase for this activity. And finally, during step 3, you must have those who view your ad take a specific action, which means that the individuals in your target market that take the action will be defined as prospects. Now, once your ads are working, you will need to direct your prospects for information that will help you qualify them. Keep in mind, not every prospect that responds to your ad will qualify as a lead. Now, why is that? Well, as it turns out, many people are curious and want to simply learn more about something that catches their eye, which in this case is your product or company. Now, many of these people are either competitors, early adopters, or just those that are curious and looking for a solution that may or may not meet their needs. You can call these last people the tire kickers. Now, you need to hone in on who you're actually focused on. In this case, it's the early adopters. So to ensure that you're reaching early adopters and not some of the other interlopers, you'll need to give a reason as to why your prospects should surrender their contact information, and you'll need to design into your form a means in which you can quickly determine if your prospect is an early adopter or just a curious person. Now, to validate the lead generation process, you will run your ads in various placement channels and determine the baseline cost of generating a qualified lead. You will need to utilize a message KPI log to record your result for later analysis. Once you have validated your lead engine, it's now time to optimize the channel to determine if you can repeatedly generate leads while lowering your costs. In this activity, your principal concerns are to ensure that number 1, your lead generation process is working. Number 2, you have a tested hypothesis that will increase the volume of leads over the same time frame. And number 3, you are able to lower your costs as you increase your volume. Now, if you're curious how you can go about doing each of these tasks, we have some fantastic tools within our incubator available for your use. Before moving to the fatal flaw analysis for this milestone, you'll analyze the results from these activities by answering the following questions that relate to this milestone's OKR. Those questions are, number 1, can I repeatedly generate leads using my lead generation process? Number 2, can I monitor the performance of my lead engine? Number 3, can I control the volume and cost of leads generated by my lead engine? Now, if you answered yes to each of these 3 questions, then you'll be ready to proceed to the next milestone, sales engine built. Now, to achieve this milestone, the lead engine built milestone, it will take approximately 1 month. So let's now look at how to fix the issues when we cannot answer these questions in the affirmative by performing our fatal flaw analysis. Now, as you probably know from our previous episodes, there are 5 fatal flaws related to your startup's key business assumptions. As the first fatal flaw relates to whether you found a compelling problem, that one doesn't really reoccur during the repeatable sales and delivery startup development phase, which takes us directly to the second fatal flaw related to sales taking too long and costing too much. Your product idea suffers from the second fatal flaw if either of the following test conditions are true. So let's get started with the first test. when you're examining your cost per lead. If your lead generation process is not able to generate the desired number of leads in the defined time frame, then you have not successfully built your key business function. If you're unable to do this, your cost of reaching your customers will be too high to create a sustainable business, which will be also reflected in the cost per qualified lead. When you fail this test condition with expensive customer lead costs or insufficient leads in the defined time frame, you can take one of the following 2 steps. Number 1, you can develop your own channel. Some examples of which are blogging, social media presence, YouTube videos, or even live events like a meetup. The second option you could take would be number 2, you may find it easier to piggyback on someone else's channel by partnering with a complementary business that will enable you to gain reach to your target customer segment. Now, the second test you perform is based on the actual cost of generating a lead based on your early metrics. You'll determine whether you have enough money to achieve the initial number of targeted leads to generate sufficient sales. Now, keep in mind, the goal for repeatable sales and delivery is for you to build the key business function that can consistently generate qualified leads for you while meeting your numerical and financial goals. It's funny, many founders don't actually think through the metrics on this as they already start their startup idea being underfunded while praying an angel investor cuts them a check before spending much of their own savings. This is also why you should make sure that you're spending your money wisely and in the right order. Burning through most of your savings on product development and then running out of cash as you try to generate sales to regenerate your cash flow will be one of the most frustrating mistakes you'll make as a founder. So the question you'll need to answer is, can I consistently generate qualified leads while decreasing my cost per qualified lead? Now, if you can't complete this test condition, if you fail this test condition, then you need to take one or more corrective actions to fix the fatal flaw. So those are, number 1, you may need to pause your startup's development so you can spend the next 1 to 3 months building your own channel. Or number 2, you can develop a no-cost channel option where your lead generation process is actually a moneymaker. As an example of this, let's assume that your target market consists of iPhone owners. You could generate leads by selling easily sourced iPhone accessories on Amazon at cost or for a small margin, either of which would result in a decent volume of iPhone owner leads that you could market to later for your startup. Now, alternatively, this is where you can hustle with manual efforts such as handing out promotional flyers or hosting workshops on topics that are helpful and relevant to your target customers. Now let's return back to our earlier example with TutorSpree. While this startup had designed a fantastic SEO strategy that provided near zero cost of customer acquisition, it experienced considerable risk relative to potential changes in its channel placement, such as that risk of an algorithm update occurring. Furthermore, its SEO success blinded it to fundamental problems in its service as TutorSpree's management team focused on the volume of new tutor signups and overlooked the lack of tutor concentration in terms of geography or subject matter expertise, which inhibited parent satisfaction when using the platform. And for that matter, as the company was unable to identify a cost-effective placement channel it could use to better target both tutors and parents within a specific region or tied to a particular subject, TutorSpree was destined for slow growth and eventual failure. For that matter, TutorSpree counted on virality through earned media via word-of-mouth lead generation. However, to achieve that, it was missing key product functionality that actually led to high customer churn from parents, which meant TutorSpree was effectively running in place with its SEO strategy as it was unable to develop a replacement channel. The lesson learned here is not that SEO is a bad channel strategy. In fact, every startup should incorporate an effective search engine optimization approach in its lead generation plans. Instead, the lesson learned is a startup must find a reliable placement channel that can regularly produce cost-effective leads. So, if a startup is fortunate enough to strike SEO success early on, then its management team should allocate half of its resources to maintain this initial approach and the other half to developing a more reliable channel approach. It's this barbell investment strategy that can help a startup mitigate its risks through channel diversification while building an effective and reliable lead engine. And as a bonus, lesson learned here is that when designing viral growth in your lead engine, A startup must design and implement effective product features that foster trusting customer relationships that inspire word of mouth promotion. Okay, during our next workshop, we're going to examine the second repeatable sales and delivery milestone, where you'll build your sales engine so as to regularly and predictably convert your qualified leads to paying customers. We'll also identify the activities you need to perform and the tools you'll use so you can efficiently complete this milestone. Now, before we jump over to Shafique to answer your questions, if you're looking to change how you grow your startup by building lean and you find these workshops helpful, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the notification button, as well as give us a like or drop a positive comment. Also, if you know of other founders or product managers who could benefit from our workshops, please share this video with them so they too can build their startups lean and avoid mistakes that cost time and money. Building Lean is brought to you by the LeanMastery Incubator. Unlike other incubators or accelerators that rush you to pitch to investors whether you're ready or not, LeanMastery guides you in building key business functions that turn up revenues fast, which puts you in the best position to successfully raise money and outrun your competition. Learn more about how you can become a LeanMastery Incubator member at leanmastery.co. Thank you all for watching, and remember, don't let anyone knock you off from achieving your dreams, as we believe you can do it, and we're here with you every step along the way. So let's continue building lean by jumping over to Shafique to get us started with answering your burning startup questions.
Hi everyone, Shafique here. Welcome to another edition of Founders Forum, where we answer questions submitted by founders and innovators like yourself. But before we do, I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channels, somewhere right over here, as well as click on the notification bell so you can gain immediate access to the latest episodes of our show, where we help founders by answering critical questions related to systematically building your startup. All right, hey Steven, are you ready with your first question?
Hey there, Shafique. Yes, I have it right here. And this question comes from a founder whose CPG startup is in the repeatable sales and delivery startup phase. And she asks regarding her company, how do I know when my startup is ready for scale?
Okay, so that's a good question. Well, let me start by saying that scaling too early can kill your startup fast. So knowing the answer is really important. And there are two methods to figuring out your readiness. The first method is to assess your startup in terms of capabilities. And of course, the second method is to assess your startup in terms of accomplishments. So we like a hybrid approach to determining if you are ready for scale. In terms of capabilities, you should have the ability to generate qualified leads on demand, and each net new lead should not require extra effort on the part of your team. The lever you want to engineer is that of advertising budget. The more ads you buy, the more qualified leads you generate until you saturate the market segment that you're targeting. In addition, as you expand your geographic reach, you can drive down the cost of acquiring each qualified lead. So in terms of capabilities regarding leads, that's the kind of way you want to think about it. So when you have achieved that capability to generate 10% month-over-month growth in qualified leads, then you've met one of the criteria that qualifies your startup to be ready for scale growth. The next capability or the criteria is converting qualified leads into paying customers. The ability to convert a qualified lead into a paying customer in less than 24 hours for B2C products and less than 2 weeks for a B2B product is one of those another critical capability. And then one quick note on the B2B products. Selling to large enterprise is notoriously slow process, something lasting months. However, there are many examples of successful startups that have changed the long sales cycles by innovating on how corporations make purchasing decisions. So software as a service is an example, an excellent example of how many SaaS providers have made it easy to incrementally purchase the software by the individual within a corporation using a credit card. So rethinking how you package your product and allow users to quickly validate that your solution will work for them allows you to convert a risky long buying cycle into try before you buy approach. Now the third capability is and the last one is your organization's ability to consistently produce and deliver the product to your end customers and gain product adoption in a reasonable time frame appropriate to your product. So you need to aim for product adoption rates higher than 90% for B2C products and 95% for B2B products. Now, in terms of hard achievements, you want at least adoption rate of 90% for the last 100 customers you sold for your B2C product, and at least 95% for the last 20 B2B customers. When you reach those numbers, then you're ready in terms of capabilities and accomplishments to scale. Stephen, you want to add your thoughts to this, my way of looking at it?
Yeah, this is great, Shafique. You've laid out a really clear framework for a founder to understand the capabilities or accomplishments a startup would need to achieve prior to scaling. Now, one thing I'd like to add is that scaling is an iterative process. So, as an example, when scaling sales, a startup is attempting to move from $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue, or MRR, to $100,000. And they're doing this rather than skipping all the way ahead to $10 million of monthly recurring revenues. And that's because the scaled activities, the team talent, the organizational capabilities will evolve as the startup climbs the growth ladder. You can't just jump way ahead without creating risk. Matter of fact, on the flip side, if a founder ignores your framework related to capabilities and accomplishments by prematurely scaling the business, then substantial new risks do develop. An example of this would be a startup that doesn't have a proven scalable lead engine, but the founders happen to be able to raise an investment round and that investment round's goal is to massively grow sales and production. Well, in that case, when the leads don't keep up with scale plans, then the startup will have a buildup of inventory that it's unable to sell. It may have to slash prices to compensate or even artificially generate demand. That's just not sustainable. Okay, next question, Shafique. This one comes from a founder who's just begun working on a software startup, and his question is, what is a good time to work out your brand?
Okay, so I like brand questions. You know, a lot of founders who, like everybody's heard about brands, but really what is the value of a brand, right? You know, what does it help you do that without branding you couldn't do? So the simplest way you can understand the value of a brand is by going to like a grocery store and looking at brand name cereal prices and comparing them to the generic alternative. You'll notice that the price difference can be up to 50% more for the brand name cereal. The same is true across almost all categories of consumer packaged goods. A brand buys you pricing power. So that's a great way for you to kind of like figure that out for yourself. You know, the big value of a brand is pricing power. And so why is that? Why is that true? Well, it's because a brand cuts down the time it takes a buyer to make a purchasing decision by getting the buyer over the risk of the critical question, will this product solve my problem, right? A brand, by establishing a brand, you're kind of removing that hurdle in the mind of the buyer where they can get over that hurdle very fast because a brand established that yet it works and it delivers on its promise. So, so that speed, of course, means when somebody can make they can get rid of the risk, they can make a decision much faster, and they are generally willing to pay more to be able to make that decision faster. And that's borne out for all kinds of products. So that's the value of the brand. How have successful founders branded their startup? Well, we see two different patterns. One is around the founder's vision of the company itself. So if we go back all the way to Apple, Steve Jobs was all about better quality through superior design. Every product Apple introduced early on was better than its predecessor and constantly focused on creating a better experience for the user. So in this case, Apple was able to establish its brand right from the get-go by laser focusing on quality. Now, why did Steve Jobs focus on quality instead of cost or speed like his competitors at the time? Well, that started with, of course, the customer that Steve had targeted in his mind, you know, that he had interviewed and gotten to know quite a bit. Steve Jobs, from the very early on, wanted to allow creative people to do more using computers. He knew that they didn't care about cost or speed. They cared about having a computer that just worked. One that didn't break down, or crash while the customer was in the middle of their creative flow. So one way to understand how to think about your brand is to think deeply about the customer you want to serve and the value you can deliver to that customer that's inherently promised in the brand, right? So many founders take the approach of branding that is aligned with their vision of the product and the value they're creating in the marketplace when compared to alternatives. But they do more than that. They build their capabilities to constantly deliver the value. So as an example, Apple always hired the best industrial designers to design their hardware. They hired the best UX designers to build their software. Now let's contrast that with Dollar Store. Completely different end of the spectrum, different technology, industry capabilities. It's a retail play. And in this case, if I have the story right, the founders built the Dollar Store on the insight that minimum wage earners couldn't afford consumer packaged goods from the grocery store or the big box retail store. So they went about repackaging everyday purchase items so they could be sold for $1. In this case, the founder didn't have the vision to be the low-cost provider. They stumbled onto the opportunity and chose to build a brand around the market they found. But whether you look at Apple or the Dollar Store, you have to keep in mind the customer and what they value in the brand, which of course starts with understanding the problem dimension you're tackling. So are you going to focus on costs, time, quality, or completeness? Your brand should be aligned with your product strategy and of course vice versa. Now, Stephen, would you like to to add any thoughts on this and the way you look at this, the brand discussion?
Yes, I'd like to add that the timing of branding that you're describing really ties into the third startup phase of sustainable growth, which is perfect. Now, when founders may think about branding early, just as you elaborated on with Apple specifically, and even the Dollar Store approach, it's essential that a startup stay focused on completing the activities necessary to achieve the milestones related to the first two startup phases before focusing on branding during the third startup phase, which is why branding is a perfect fit then. Now, the big reason why that is if a product doesn't effectively solve a customer's compelling problem or a startup is unable to activate its target customers, no amount of branding and vision will overcome these fatal flaws. So while branding seems like the fun part of building a business, being unable to execute will always erode any brand's value. All right, we have time for one last question, Shafique, and this one comes from another early stage founder who's working on a fitness app and whose startup is in the market validation phase. Her question is, during your last episode, you discussed the use of earned media. Can you further elaborate whether earned media is an effective strategy for my startup?
Okay, so as a startup, trying to gain attention using earned media, of course it has its risks, right? Not all good media, earned media is good media. So let's start by understanding when you should think about getting media attention. If you're still trying to get market validation for your idea, then the only earned media attention you want is focused on the problem itself that you're solving. And the more press you can gain around becoming a thought leader, focus on the problem you're trying to solve, the better. Your sole concern at this stage of your startup is to find other like-minded individuals who also care about solving the problem. Most of them will be potential customers. However, you may run into some competitors, and of course, you'll also run into some talent. And that talent, of course, can help you with your startup. So in this stage, the other thing I want to emphasize, you don't understand enough about the problem to be able to start talking about the solution. So staying focused on the problem, why it exists, how solving it will make a real difference for those who suffer from the problem, is the thing that you want to focus on while in market validation. Now, if you're past the market validation phase and are trying to get your first 100 satisfied customers, then you can start to define the solution in terms of your differentiation. So getting earned media on public presentation, you do at conferences as well as early customer wins is a good approach. Of course, once you're past repeated sales and delivery and are ready for scale, then you're ready to publicly launch your startup. And at this point, there are several different strategies you can employ to gain earned media. The most common strategy is around, of course, customer wins. Many companies publicly announce customer wins to gain earned media coverage. The other great topic is around when you need to hire talent, like you're in growth mode, and then promoting how fast you're growing helps you, and advertising, of course, around the talent that you're looking for and getting news coverage for that. That's another great way to get earned media. And of course, that's a great way for you to also recruit in some good talent that's in the marketplace looking for to work for a company like yours. So, which in turn should lead to talent taking the time and trying to find you, right? They'll seek you out. So it's a great way to drive inward strategy. It's a great triggering event. Another strategy used by many disruptive startups, like Tesla, of course, Steven's favorite startup, although they're not so much of a startup anymore. But like Tesla, is to court controversy. Disruptive startups like Tesla love controversy because it allows them to engage the public, right? They can create a lot of engagement by both the detractors on either side of the issue. Now, this is of course a tricky balancing act, but if done correctly, then can lead tremendous following and engagement from all those who are on the side of the issue the startup is advocating. So in Tesla's case, they chose to pick a fight with big oil. Now, it seemed like a foolish play early on, but got them legions of fans who cared about the environment and saw Tesla as a legitimate market-driven answer to the climate change problem. Now, there are no less than 100 YouTubers with millions of followers dedicated to covering everything Tesla. Now, one more example of embracing controversy. If you recently saw the Apple privacy ad, they took direct aim at Facebook and other social media companies that make money by exposing their users' private information. Now, Steven, can we play that ad real quick?
I've browsed 8 sites for divorce attorneys today. I browsed 8 sites for divorce attorneys today.
My login for everything is Pauline@paulinefoo.com.
I love working with you.
Me too.
Red heart emoji.
Pink heart emoji.
Yellow heart emoji.
Blue heart emoji.
I hate Lee though.
Puke emoji.
Puke emoji.
I am currently reading an article titled 10 Ways to Keep Sweaty Hands from Holding You Back.
My home is in 1,000 feet.
My heart rate is currently 150, 151, 152, and back down to 150.
On March 15th at 9:16 a.m., I purchased prenatal vitamins and 4 pregnancy tests.
The number on my credit card is 0237-122-1-0725-0211.
Okay, so you can see how this ad created a lot of buzz. They were able to gain significant earned media off their normal advertisement. Now, companies advertise all the time, but they rarely get the kind of coverage Apple got for their ad. And Apple is no stranger to this strategy. When Steve Jobs was way back when Apple was first launching, they explicitly used this strategy back, with their 1984 advertisement against IBM. And recently, of course, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Epic Games took a page out of Apple's playbook and used exactly the same spoof off the ad controversy to gain earned media coverage against Apple. So Apple got a little bit of a taste of what they had done early on in their career, played against them just last week, as we're recording this. So if you've not seen their ad, just search for Epic Games Apple 1984 ad. It's really brilliantly done. Now, of course, I've already mentioned Tesla. So Steven, would you like to take this opportunity to fawn over Tesla and Elon Musk one more time? I know you've been trying to get him to tweet at you, and it's been 2 hours since you last talked about them. So go ahead.
I think you've out Elon me this time, Shafique. So I'll pass. Still waiting for your tweet, Elon. Anytime. I'll stop everything. All right. One thing I want to remind everyone about is just a quick set up what earned media is, just to kind of catch everyone up, which is that earned media is when your company receives press attention and or word of mouth marketing from your customers. In other words, it's not something you can buy, it's not something you can do, it's something you earn, deservedly, presumably. Also, earned media is an iterative activity that depends really on which phase the startup is in. So, Shafique, you already elaborated on this really nicely by focusing on, as an iteration, you focus on the problem to be solved. That's something a founder could blog, podcast, produce videos about that subject early on. Now, technically speaking, while all that content would be categorized as owned media because it's media that's produced and owned by the startup, by demonstrating subject matter expertise around a relevant topic, a founder in that situation can position herself as an expert to make herself available for press interviews. Likewise, her owned media channels or owned media content can be shared with those who are experiencing the same problem. In the case of this founder who's developing a fitness app, she could produce some really great content that are related to the problem she's trying to solve that would be very shareable. And that sharing would become effectively earned media. Now, as a startup matures, more coordinated earned media can be developed, such as with the example you illustrated a moment ago with Fortnite's dispute with Apple and Google. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, essentially what it came down to is Fortnite turned on a new payment capability that collected in-app purchases directly violated the App Store and Play Store terms of service. Now, Epic Games, Fortnite's parent company, knew that Fortnite would be banned from those app stores as a result. So it had at the ready that video that Shafique referenced, that a video mocking Apple by spoofing Apple's own iconic 1984 themed ad, making Apple the dictator effectively. Also, though, Epic Games, Fortnite, had prepared a coordinated PR strategy to maximize earned media from both the press as well as its customers. Trust me, it was pretty effective because both my kids started talking about it as soon as it came out, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So not only was that well planned, realistically, that can only happen every once in a while. You start to burn people out. And the reason why is earned media is based on newsworthy events that are worth reporting or discussing. So unless a startup does constantly court controversy, as Shafique kind of alluded with Tesla's leaning into a change in use of energy for mass transportation, coming up with new newsworthy events is not always sustainable. As a matter of fact, for Tesla, they can't just only complain about the oil and gas industry. They have to talk about their battery technology and new breakthroughs. That makes it newsworthy. Okay, that's all the time we have for questions right now. If you're looking to build your startup lean, please click the link nearby or drop your question in the comments below. Also, please subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you can receive immediate access to our latest episodes. Building Lean is brought to you by the LeanMastery Incubator. Unlike other incubators or accelerators that rush you to pitch to investors whether you're ready or not, LeanMastery guides you in building key business functions that turn up revenues fast, which puts you in the best position to successfully raise money and outrun your competition. Learn more about how you can become a LeanMastery Incubator member at leanmastery.co. Thank you all for watching, and we look forward to helping you be successful in pursuing your startup dreams by building lean.